welcome to a special feature. The summer series.
Summer series.
The summer series of the Cine-Scoots. Now, I guess this wouldn't be cinema. This would be the network.
Telescoops.
The Telescoots.
The Telescoots.
Reviewing what everybody has been waiting for us to review, our millions of fans. All 9 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
All 9 seasons of CBS's How I Met Your Mother. Plus an intro episode. So
this is our intro episode.
Correct. I'm Thano.
I'm Javier.
And Javier, you are a big How I Met Your Mother fan, are you not?
How can you tell? It's not by this big blue French horn and yellow umbrella permanently seared into my skin.
I was gonna say it's the Morbius shirt on your that you're currently wearing, but yes, it is. If for all the people watching at home, you can see a yellow umbrella, blue French horn, true story tattoo that has been permanently put on Javier's forearm.
Making Thano's mom weep.
Making my mom weep. Nah, JK. She would only weep if I did it.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, your mom's more progressive than a lot of other people.
Probably.
Good.
Probably.
So why are we doing this?
So, this is our first venture into anything TV, first and foremost. And a couple reasons. One, you are especially a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say you're a big fan. I would say I'm a big fan. I was addicted to the show as I watched it when I discovered it. And I recently rediscovered it this past school year because for our millions of fans watching at home who are also dedicated fans to How I Met Your Mother, this is the year where How I Met Your Father also premiered on Hulu.
So that was a change.
That was a change, and for people familiar with the show, there had been the idea of like a How I Met Your Dad spinoff that had been in the works pretty much since the original show was ending.
They had like a pilot that they had done in the past.
Didn't take off.
I think the pilot leaked somewhere.
Did it really?
And I think I may have seen it, and it was not good.
Okay, I'll try to find it. But I think the other thing to also add to this is not only does it have that the spin-off finally came out this year, starring the great Hilary Duff, but also How I Met Your Mother, of course, has that infamously very polarizing ending, which also came out around the same time that another show that we had loved dearly, Showtime's Great Dexter, with its own originally polarizing ending.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's kind of like its own little era in this bridge between streaming and what that did to television, and then the end of network TV and like what that did to television, and then just kind of like bearing what for some was anticlimax, or what for some was a satisfying ending. So I guess what I'm curious about for the show as we revisit it this summer and then talk about it in 10 beautiful episodes. Episode 0 is this one officially. 1, how does the show hold up? 2, how is the original a product of its time versus how is the spin-off a product of our time? Looking at the ending, does it ring with different eyes now? And then, of course, we have our lovely tier lists.
Yes.
Of rankings.
So many lists, tier lists, top 5s, top 10s.
And in fact, I think very few of them are actual tier lists. I think they're mostly just
it sounds nice.
Top 5. It does sound nice. But so I think the millions of fans back home would very much benefit from hearing how would you describe your relationship with the show? How has it changed over time? What are you excited about in this podcast?
So I'm always down to talk to anyone about How I Met Your Mother. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's a secret. Again, if you look at my hand and my arm, it's on there. Yeah. That I am a really, really big fan. How
many times have you seen it?
All the way through?
Yeah.
I lost track at 7 times all the way through, which is from season 1 to 9.
And then how many times would you say you've seen one season the most? Like, what's your peak for a number of seasons?
It's hard to know. That's the problem, right? So, like, what I would do is anytime a new season would come out, I would start the show from the beginning and catch up all the way to the newest season. I started in season 5.
That's what I did with Harry Potter when the books were coming out.
Yeah. And so, like, every time a new season would come out, so, like, season 5 ended, and then I restarted again. Then season 6 was going to come out, and then I restarted from beginning all the way to the end. The reason why it gets really murky for me was because I went through a time for about 2 years where I just had it consistently on in the background. If I was doing lesson plans for work, I was listening to How I Met Your Mother. If I was mowing the lawn, I was listening to How I Met Your Mother. Anything that I would do, playing video games, I had the show going. Yeah. So it's hard for me to keep track of 100% of how many times, but I lost track at like 7 full viewings.
So I do not know by number. It's nowhere near that. It's definitely less than 5, but it's at least.
Now this is all the way through, from 0 to 9.
So to be honest, all the way through might truly be 2.
Okay.
I did not watch that last season a lot.
Okay.
But of the earlier seasons, I think maybe 3 to 4.
Okay.
So not as much to be an S tier fan, but I would say more than average.
Okay.
It's interesting because I've not done my full on research on this, but the genre of sitcom that it is and that it kind of kicks off, would it be the first like heavily plot driven season to season, there's a full narrative from beginning to end sitcom that was massively popular?
I don't know that it's the first, but I think it's one of the most popular to have done it.
Yeah.
Because you have an end goal, right? So the problem with a lot of sitcoms is you don't have an end goal.
You can just kind of meander.
Yes. And you know, that's perfectly fine for the type of show that sitcoms tend to be, right?
Yeah.
Any show starting a comedian where the title is their name,
right?
There is no end point, right? The George Lopez show. Is there an end in sight? You don't know because it's really just about his day-to-day life. Yeah. Same with the John Mulaney show, the Bernie Mac show, even the Fresh Prince.
Home Improvement,
yeah. Right? You don't have like
you're there to
conclusion.
Watch. You're there to watch the situation of the family play out.
Which is kind of more in line of where you have like a drama.
Yeah.
Like when you have The Walking Dead, for example. Yes, we know that it's ending. But the ultimate goal is to either find a cure for the zombie outbreak or everybody's just going to die and that's how it ends.
Ironic that you picked the most meandering drama.
Exactly. But that's the thing. Yeah. Like that's why I picked it, because it's a show that could infinitely go for as long as it needs to, but there is...
Or longer than it needs to.
Or longer than it needs to, as is the case with this show. But there is an end in sight. There is a point, whether or not they meet that point. That is not common in sitcoms.
Correct.
So we know from the very beginning, the point of the story, it's in the title, How I Met Your Mother. The whole story is based on how did our main boy, Teddy Westside, meet his wife and potentially the mother of his future kids who he's talking to.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting about both genre and medium that we consume it is 2 things. So number 1, sitcoms now, especially in the age of streaming, like you said, you had it on while you were doing homework, right? Mm-hmm. I think that's very much what a sitcom can play the role as. So when The Office was on Netflix, that was people's background noise. Now, like when I just need something on, I'll turn on The Simpsons on Disney Plus, right? Both of those, like The Office is not as totally meandering as like as as like a Home Improvement or like a George Lopez, right? But it's still not as like plot driven as something like How I Met Your Mother, right? So it's kind of in this like little sweet spot. Whereas How I Met Your Mother, I think does a really, really cool, fun job of sort of balancing those two roles, because each episode still has that overarching narrative where it's like, these are the shenanigans that people are up to.
Yes.
Today, the overall plot is still like, sometimes it feels very present, sometimes it feels like rather absent, so you can just like passively watch, while you're doing something else, but it's still intriguing enough where you're going to be hooked and invested in the story of Ted Mosby's eventual love life.
Yeah, and unlike other shows, like I could make the argument that the show that I really, really hate that always gets compared to How I Met Your Mother a lot is Friends, right? Like, you could make the argument that Friends did have an overarching story, the whole story between Ross and Rachel and how they develop and how they go from kind of sort of being together to at the end of the show being together again. But that was never implicit, like, it was never implicitly the point of the show.
Yeah.
Right, so that is different.
Different for sure. And I think one of the cool things about, I have yet to actually like watch Friends all the way through.
Don't do it. It's awful.
when I was a kid and when it was on TV, I would like have it on, but I didn't like get or appreciate what I was watching, right? I think one of the points though that's cool about this show is that while it has an overarching mystery, I think that by the end of the show, like, the point is the friends.
Yes.
Right? It is very much a celebration of, like, the group. Which I think gets us to two questions. One, how does this then compare with the spin-off so far from what we've seen?
Mm-hmm.
But then two, I'm still very interested in, like, the way we watch How I Met Your Mother. So really quickly before I go on, when did you get into the show? Like, what season was it on when you discovered it?
So it was season 5.
Mm-hmm.
So season 5 was from 2009 to 2010. So basically academic school year 2009-2010.
Okay.
So senior year of high school for me.
Okay.
And it was, and I will say this was towards the tail end of my senior year. So I started watching maybe around March,
Gotcha.
after they do the big long break for like, what's it called, like sweeps week, where they do like the big ratings bumps. And I remember that I did most of my binging and most of my catching up during like that summer and in college.
Yeah. So I got into it from you.
Yes.
End of high school going into college. So soonish after that time. By the time I had gotten into it, the John Lithgow episodes had already aired. Because I remember seeing on TV him being teased in like commercials before I really knew what was going on in the show. So I ask that because I think one thing that you and I have at least talked about in watching other dramas or Disney Plus shows is how now the streaming model is going back into
Episodic,
right? Instead of like binging TV. And when I'm looking at this show and the question of how it holds up, and also whether it gets better or like worse over time, I will make the hypothesis that A, it holds up very well, but B, it actually gets much better once you escape the week-to-week format and you can actually just like watch it all the way through.
The new one.
No, the original How I Met Your Mother. The original How I Met Your Mother.
Okay. I think that's mostly true for the last season.
For sure.
I think especially so. Our assumption is if you're listening to this, you've seen at least the show all the way through.
Yes.
The last season takes place primarily over the span of a single weekend, maybe even less. leading up to Robin and Barney's wedding. And I remember watching that week to week, just like with season 2 of The Walking Dead, where they spend most of that season in that disgusting farm. Like, it is painful to get through.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I didn't enjoy season 9, but I can totally see why people go, we need to speed this up,
wrap this up,
get to the point. Why are we still stuck in this wedding?
Yeah.
So yes, the binge system is a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
So kind of like to your question leading into this was, how has TV habits changed? Well, we're going back to it for a reason. Things like Mandalorian are very successful. Things like WandaVision, Falcon and Winter Soldier, Loki, all of those have been week-to-week releases.
Yes. I'm going to push back in a little bit.
Sure.
Keep going first.
My whole point is that works mostly for a marketing standpoint and for an engagement standpoint.
Yeah.
As someone who likes to sit and watch multiple episodes of a show in one sitting, I do like the binge.
Yeah.
The binge system. But as someone who wants their shows to be talked about for weeks and weeks and weeks and have that conversation happen, I do like the episodic release.
I think so. Here's where I'll agree. I think the best thing about the episodic release is talking about something for weeks. I think that when you're able to have a show that's an event, right, like a national or global event, that's where it seems its strongest.
Yes.
And while all these shows that we just mentioned, like the Disney Plus shows in the recent year, the Star Wars and the Marvel ones, right?
Sure.
I think while they are highly successful, I don't think, just from my own subjective observations, they've gained like the event status that something like Game of Thrones, or dare I say like the last seasons of How I Met Your Mother had.
Okay.
I think How I Met Your Mother is different because the reactions to that as it were coming out were more mixed.
Mm-hmm.
Game of Thrones was obviously its own
its own can of worms.
It's its own can of worms, but that was an objective event.
Yes.
Whereas like people who I came across and who were not in any way connected to nerd culture were aware that like, oh, Game of Thrones is on. They were possibly even like watching Game of Thrones. Right?
Yeah.
So that's where week to week worked at its best, but I think that was more so to Game of Thrones' credit as a show and how it was able to like wrap you into its mystery than to its week by week status.
So there is something to it, right?
Yeah.
So a show like Game of Thrones, where every week you're kind of piecing together the overarching story.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of twists and turns in that show.
Yeah.
Same with, to a certain degree, WandaVision.
Yeah.
WandaVision is a very plot-heavy series.
Yes.
Where you're week to week you're trying to put together, okay, what's happening in Westview, how is Vision back,
and it works the best in this format of
exactly
all the Disney Plus ones.
Whereas a show like How I Met Your Mother, I can totally see it working in a binge model because it's relatively low stakes.
Yes.
I think it's that. I think that low stakiness is what makes a binging show, easier because you don't have to spend weeks. You shouldn't be spending a week theorizing on, well, is this new girl that Ted banged, is this the new mother?
Exactly.
Like, that's different than going, oh, Wanda saw a guy wearing a beekeeper costume. What the hell does that mean?
Right.
So I think it's very different.
Yeah.
Shows like The Bois, like, that is doing a week-to-week episodic release. And, you do have questions wondering, like, oh, well, what is Homelander up to? Those types of shows, the shows with, like, big stakes, big, like, set pieces, I feel like those benefit more from the week-to-week.
And I think you feel it fail the most in some shows like Boba Fett for sure. right now maybe Obi-Wan. I think we'll see where like the narrative is just not as compelling enough for you to like wait, a whole 7 days to see what's going on.
And you can tell that they know. You can tell that they know that it's harder to keep eyes without the binge.
Yeah.
Because yes, they are doing weekly releases, but if you notice, a lot of shows they start you off with a handful of episodes.
Yeah.
I think every Disney Plus show so far has started with a couple of episodes. Yeah. And I'm sorry, if I had seen Boba Fett and if I only saw one episode,
yeah,
I probably would not have come back.
Yeah.
Because episode 1 just bored me to tears.
Yeah.
But like a show like The Bois, for example, like I just mentioned, they release the first 3 episodes in one go, and then the next week is one episode.
And then I think I'm going to throw one more piece of pop media into the mix to kind of flesh out the comparison. But I think where we bring this back to Him Yim and how we see that this show works so well, at least for me in the binge format, is you get rid of a lot of that pretext and that anticipation of like, what is the girl at the ball going to look like, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where you can just enjoy hanging with your pals.
Yes.
Which is what the show is about.
And I feel like that's something that is helped with binging for a lot of shows.
Yeah.
Any show that has any sort of weakness, it's a lot easier to overlook that weakness when you don't linger on it for weeks.
And you and I just saw Morbius, right?
Yeah. Yes, go on.
And we'll be talking about it at some point, right?
Go on.
And without getting into too much detail, my very, very quick review is like not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Much less bad when you strip away all of the like MCU connection, like franchising, right?
Yes.
Like when you just look at the movie by itself, not that bad.
Yeah, like a standalone.
So when you're in How I Met Your Mother, and A, you don't have the week by week anticipation. B, you also know that like the mother dies, right? And you don't get to spend a lot of time with her. We can talk about how well or how not well that works, once we get there. But like when you've been through the ride once, for me it's much easier just to be able to like appreciate hanging with the crew.
Yes.
And like doing shenanigans.
And that to kind of continue going down your bullet points that you want to talk about, it's a lot to the strength of the characterization in the show.
Yes.
Right? Like I feel like a show like this does not work on a repeat viewing if the characters suck.
Correct.
So like I watched all of Friends.
Mm-hmm.
At first it started because we're like, well, it's on Netflix. It was a big deal that it came to Netflix. And I said, you know what? I haven't seen the show all the way through. Let's watch it. But I have zero interest in going back because a lot of the characters suck.
Yeah.
Like Ross sucks. Rachel sucks. Chandler, like he's just such a pretentious fuck.
Yeah.
Joey, he's adorable and I do like him, but sometimes he can be a bit too dumb even for like a TV character.
Yeah.
And like it's hard to get invested and then say I'm gonna succumb myself to this again for a second viewing, whereas in a show like How I Met Your Mother I feel like a lot of the characters, even if you don't like every character to the same degree, I feel like most episodes do a good job at giving each character something to do.
So would you say that over the course of the show there are characterization adaptations that occur? Certain character, I'm kind of giving you the leading question here, but certain character gets more limelight and more character depth as the show goes on. As a result,
the Barney question.
Yes.
Okay. we're going there right away.
Yeah.
Yes, and so that was one of the things that we wanted to talk about too, right? Like that's going to be a big focus of a lot of this. Mm-hmm. One of the most popular characters.
It's also the most problematic.
One of the most problematic and controversial. To the point where people look back at the series and go, oh my God, how can Barney get away with this?
And then also to the point, or maybe I'm jumping the gun, but then also to the
for it.
point where you watch the spin-off and you're like,
We're missing a Barney.
This needs a Barney.
Yeah. You need that chaotic.
There are attempts. There are attempts in the spin-off.
In the spin-off, yes.
But it's not Barney.
It's not Barney.
Yes.
So the reason why, like, and again, going back to the characters in the show, is the characters are not stagnant.
Yep.
All the characters grow, even if it's minimal, which I don't think any character just minimally grows.
Maybe Lily is the least.
Probably.
Yeah.
But I mean, Lily she overall seems to have her shit together.
Yes.
She gets most of her growing up done in, like, between season 1 and 2.
And even if she doesn't grow, she definitely at least, like, vacillates. She's not static.
Yes.
In any way, shape, or form.
And there are things that pop up about her character throughout that are, like, sprinkled in that add depth to her character.
Yep.
Without going into too many details, because, we want to save some stuff for the actual episodes. Yeah. The introduction of her dad, like, does a lot for her character, showing you why she can be kind of controlling sometimes, because she's just always had chaos in her life when her dad's around.
Well, that and also becoming a mom.
Right. and all that. So, we can say that she's probably the least dynamic character,
and there's still a lot there.
But there's still a lot to unpack there. So that is interesting. But I mean, the biggest changing character has to be Barney. And he might be terrible.
But it's a fun terrible.
And it's a fun terrible that the show is not afraid to call out, I feel. Because there are episodes completely devoted. I'm thinking of the episode The Bracket. Yeah. Where it's just devoted to just, like, in your face telling you Barney is a piece of shit. Yeah. And he has done some terrible things. Yeah. And yes, it does it in like a comedic like point, but it does show that he does learn from it a little bit.
And let me make sure that the doors and windows are locked, lest I attract the Republicans with this comment. Oh wait, we're in a library.
Oh yeah, no, they wouldn't.
They would never come here in the first place.
This is socialism.
But I think that the
free books.
So we can't. It's irresponsible to just let Barney get away scot-free.
Yes.
With no criticism. And to be honest, like, I did a rewatch of this show in this school year, right? And there was a lot that I had forgotten that I was like, oh, this show, like, got away with some, like, some stuff. Mm-hmm. And here's what led to this, actually. This is literally what led to me rewatching the show. I was watching the spinoff, right? Mm-hmm. Part of me was hungry again for the real show, so I started. But early on, there's an episode in the spinoff where, I forget their name. Sid, right? Sid?
Yes.
What's his girlfriend's name, who lives in California? His fiance.
I can't remember. I want to say Emily, but I can't remember.
So, problem. But anyway, not Javier's problem, the show's problem. So, she sends him a, like...
Oh, the sex toy.
The sex toy, right? It's a Bluetooth sex toy that they can use to stimulate themselves while one is in New York and then one is in California.
They stimulate each other.
Yes.
Like if they were doing it to one another, but they're across the country,
We're becoming
right?
that type of podcast now.
Yes. Wonderful.
Yeah. So I'm watching this, and then I feel ashamed because I just went full on Puritan. I was like, this is too crass. Like, the old show would have never delved to, like, this levels of crassness. And you know what? Maybe this says something about my inherent sexism, because this is like a female version of overt sexuality that I was put off by, whereas I had watched Him Yim and I was not. But this is besides the point.
Sure.
So I watched this show, and then I was like, oh, like, Him Yim, like, was never, like, down to this level. I'm scandalized. And then I watched Him Yim, and I'm like, it was absolutely down.
It was down to clown.
It was down to that level. Now, not, like, I don't think you could have gotten away with showing, like, a dildo. It wasn't a dildo, but, you know, it's effectively, like, you know, you couldn't have shown a sex toy, like, on CBS.
On CBS.
At 7 o'clock in the evening. but it's pretty equally raunchy.
So
at many points.
So this is kind of like where my countless, honestly, borderline embarrassing amount of hours that I watched this show.
Yeah.
You talk about this thing with like the sex toys and how they stimulate each other and everything. Yes. There's an episode with an entire storyline built into the episode about Robin buying Lily a dildo.
Yeah, there is.
And like, it's played entirely for laughs, yes. But like, even when the reveal is made at the end, like, they lean into it.
Yeah.
They don't make it into like an awkward thing. Like they're at a wedding shower.
Yeah.
Lily is gifted a dildo, a big black dildo, by Robin. And Robin is embarrassed, so she switches the gift.
She switches the tags. Yep.
Turns out that the gift she switched with was Grandma Lois.
Yep.
Which again, I can't believe I pulled that out of my brain.
And the card is very well written.
The card. And then she's telling her how like, I used to use this at night.
Yep.
I don't want you to tell anyone, but your grandpa used to use it too.
Yeah.
And under the whole pretense is, everybody in the audience knows this is a dildo.
Yes.
Grandma Lois thinks this is a sewing machine.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty it's a pretty raunchy joke.
Yeah.
To be like, there's a dildo in this box, and we're insinuating that Grandpa used that dildo.
Yeah.
It was made out of wood back then.
Yeah.
So I mean,
it was there.
It was there.
It was there, and I think the there's, so especially in this day and age, you have a very usually older, definitely more conservative people who think that sexuality is just like very much like in our face, and they think this is like some new phenomenon. And it was not.
It was not.
I was, it was, while they weren't like overt sex scenes the way, so for our millions of fans at home, the way my main TV situation in the house is set up is we have our kitchen, we have like our kitchen table. There's a big old TV right there, and we kind of just watch TV like in that space, which means like we're all like my parents and I like we're all together, and like whatever's on, we can all freely see. Most people are like kind of uncomfortable watching like sex scenes at home, with their parents. I
am kind of uncomfortable watching sex scenes at home. I am fucking 30, and I am still uncomfortable with that.
It wasn't a full. The show, didn't delve into two full-on sex scenes, but there were very, very few episodes that I could play all the way through with my rather conservative father, like in the room, this on TV.
And
I'm like,
that's more with like Charlie and Valentina.
Yeah.
There's a lot of scenes, and like those are the characters that we talked about that are kind of like that. They try to fill in the Barney role.
But I mean, in the original, there were very few episodes.
Really?
I noticed that I could have, and maybe it was just terrible timing, right?
Maybe.
But there were very few episodes I could have on where like, my parents were in the room like, oh yeah, like Barney said this. I don't think there were consecutive ones that I.
They are peppered in.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things built into the show that, yes, I agree. Maybe you don't want your parents to
be there
with you
watching,
but you also have to recognize that like the reason why they did that was because they could say it.
Yeah.
Without showing it.
They got away with a lot on network TV, right?
Yes. You kind of, looking back, you kind of realize just how much shit you could get away with.
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe the moral of the story is, we're, even though things may seem like they're changing, we're not. We're not as depraved as.
The more things change. Yeah. The more they stay the same.
The more it's Morbin time.
I'm excited. I'm excited that you are kind of pumped to talk about Morbius. So we've covered a pretty good introduction.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we did take this time to talk a little bit about the spin-off.
Yes.
We did say we wanted to talk about the spin-off a little bit during the beginning. Do you want to add more to that here?
All I'll say is what's on my mind right now is by the time this first season of the spin-off ended, I was on board. I was like, all right,
yes.
I'm ready for a season 2. For me, it didn't happen until the final episode.
Okay.
Right? Whereas Him, much like Game of Thrones, you are hooked by the
It's got a very good hook.
Right.
It's got a good introduction.
I am looking forward to that experience, just letting me appreciate the ride of How I Met Your Mother more. And I'm very curious to see what of my opinions since the initial watch as things came out changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So overall, I think that's pretty good. So let's go ahead and do one of our first
Rankings.
list, our first ranking. So today we were going to talk about
2 rankings, correct?
What's up?
2 rankings. Correct?
Yes. Yeah. No, 1.
1 ranking.
Because the next one will be for the next episode, which we'll record next time.
So we've got seasons.
So today we're talking about seasons.
Yeah.
We are ranking all our seasons from
best to worst? Or from worst to best?
Let's go worst to best.
Worst to best.
Worst to best.
I like it.
So each of us kind of came up with a list. And now this is where it gets tricky.
Yes.
Because even though, yes, we are ranking them technically from worst to best, I will admit, like, this was very hard because I don't think there's a season that I hate.
And I will go further to say that I would have said in my initial watch when these things were just on TV, right? I would have initially said that there were 2 seasons that I thought were bad.
Mm.
Now I say 0 seasons are bad, right? And and I'm curious to see, 1, how this changes after our next rewatch. 2, I also just want to point out that this list was very hard for me to come up with. And my basically 7 out of my 9, I will say I'm very comfortable that the orders of those could change. I think 2 seasons will stay where they are, but I think the majority...
I think for me, a lot of the seasons for me could change, except for maybe my first 2 rankings, like my number 1 and my number 2. So let's start with yours. So let's go down your list. Let's start with your number 9.
Number 9 is number 9.
Oh, so season 9?
Yep.
For Thano. Okay, what about your number 8?
My number 8 is number 8.
Oh, okay.
Where is it being written down, by the way?
I'm putting this on a
separate doc.
Yep.
Very good. Number 7 is number 7.
Number 7 is number 7.
Yes. Now, here's where things get tricky. Number 6 is number 1.
Oh,
Yes.
hold on.
So season 1 is number 6.
Season 1, interesting.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Then season 2.
Interesting, okay.
And I love season 2. So everything from season 2 onward, I think could very well change.
Okay.
Then season 3.
Okay.
Season 6.
Okay.
Season 4. And season 5.
Season 6.
Yeah.
Season 4. Season 5. So you're saying season 5
is my favorite.
Is your favorite. Season 4 is your second favorite.
Yeah.
Interesting. This is very different from what
You picked or you expected?
From what I picked and from what I expected.
Now, I think much of this could change by the end. If I had cash on me, I would put $1 down now, and I would say that I bet at least season 5 or 4 might switch by the time this ends. What's impressive to me about this show is, so to compare to The Office. All right, The Office is infamous for having a decrease in quality after Steve Carell leaves, right? Mm-hmm. Where The Office has the leg up is I think its finale is definitely better than How I Met Your Mother's. But I don't think The Office is as consistently good for as long as How I Met Your Mother is consistently good. Like, this core of 5, 4, 6, 3, 2, 1. I'll throw 1 into the mix. Is like solid ass television where I feel like my margins of difference are actually like pretty slim.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have my list.
Let's hear it.
My list. So season 7 is my number 9.
Ah.
Season 7. I think I sent it to you, by the way.
Very good.
Season 7 is my number 9. Season 8 is 8.
Okay.
So we agree on that.
Agree. Yeah.
7th is season 3.
Okay.
As much as I do like season 3, I do have a reasoning for that.
Okay.
And we can talk a little bit more about that later. Season 4 is my number 6.
Okay.
Season 9 is my number 5.
Okay. That's high.
It's a little high.
That's high.
And I do have reasons for it too. Season 6 is my number 4.
Okay.
Season 5 is my number 3. Season 1 is my number 2. Season 2 is my number 1.
Season 2 is really good.
Season 2 is really good.
Yeah.
So the reason why I put season 9 as high as I did is because I will die on the hill that I like the ending.
Yeah.
I like the original ending.
I think that's fair.
And it is also the most we get of the mother.
Yep.
And I really do like her as a character.
Those were wins.
Those were huge wins for me. Yes, season 9 has my least favorite episode of all time, which is Bedtime Stories.
Yes.
Bedtime Stories is...
The rhyming one.
The rhyming one.
Yeah.
I would argue Bedtime Stories is the worst
episode
thing to come out of that whole show.
And yet, when you can just binge...
You can watch it and be like, well, that's a painful 20 minutes, or you can completely skip it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You are missing 0 by not doing that. And there was one more that I said, season 6 being at 4. Honestly, here's the thing. My last 4, I think I could switch around.
Yeah.
Maybe not 2 and 1. I think I'm pretty adamant with 2 being my favorite season. You get the best, like...
It's fun to see Ted and Robin together.
It's very fun to see Ted and Robin together. Which you do get some of that in season 1, which is why it's ranked high.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of that in season 2.
It's also fun that season 2 fixes the Marshall Lily thing relatively quick.
They're effectively back together by, like, episode 5.
Yeah.
And then the rest is just, like, patching things up completely.
Yeah.
And the reason why season 3 is so low for me is because I really hate the Ted and Barney conflict.
Yeah.
That I feel like it's big stupid.
I think it is. All right. I won't say names, but they don't watch anyway, so I don't care. I think it's big stupid, but I know
people do be like that.
I know people who be like that.
People do be like that. Yes. But this is TV.
But people do be like that. I mean,
fair.
Yeah.
Fair.
And a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people do be like that.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, to be fair, but like I said, like that is the thing that for me, I feel like it really just takes me out of it.
Yeah. They
spend too much time with Ted and Barney just kind of being, like, at odds.
Yeah.
But then, like, to your point that people do be like that, why is Ted so chill with Robin? Because clearly that don't be like that in real life.
I mean, hey, there's power in the... There's power in the pea. That's all I'll say. But it's funny, as I was upon my first watch of Himyam, I'll use fake names for this. I'm generating them on the spot. I knew someone named Darnell, fake name.
Darnell, wow. What a strong African-American name.
None of these people were African-American. Who was friends with...
Jessica.
Durango.
Oh.
Durango. Another male.
Are you going to be able to keep these names straight?
No. Darnell was friends with Durango and Jeremiah. and this girl named Penny. And Durango and Penny were dating, right? They broke up in high school. This was all in high school, right? And then leading into college. Durango and Penny were dating. They broke up. Penny started dating Jeremiah. I believe they're now married.
Oh.
Durango himself did not have as much beef with Jeremiah. Darnell had hella beef with Jeremiah.
But Darnell was not dating.
He was not.
Penny.
He was not, but he had beef with Jeremiah for going out on it, for
dating his bro's
girl. He would not speak to Jeremiah. He would talk shit about Jeremiah. There was grade A high school drama that was around all these people, which bled on into college. Yes. So, and that was, and that point, Darnell was in one of my social circles, and also was watching this show. So it was kind of I think that part of the reason why I didn't even give the whole Ted and Barney conflict, a second thought, was that a version of that was just happening, right in front of my eyes.
I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
That is very fair.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we said we will revisit this ranking at the end of our
summer series.
Yeah. I am going to, as counterintuitive as it probably is for me to rewatch the whole series, I will rewatch the whole series.
You got it.
I mean, let's be honest. I already did start it.
Yeah.
So I'm already in season 4.
Yeah.
But the only ones that I can see possibly fluctuating are the bottom 4.
Yeah.
I feel like my top 4 are pretty solidly. They might change order, but I don't see them dipping into 5, 6, 7, or 8 or 9.
Yeah. I don't think anything would dip. I think things might just rise up for me.
But when something rises, something has
to dip, but it's not that thing suffered. It's just
And that's the problem, right? It's the problem when you have a show where you feel like there is no definitive awful.
Yeah.
You can watch a show like Dexter, and there are some stinkers in Dexter.
Yeah. And then they tried it again.
You know what? I will forgive Dexter New Blood. I liked more than I disliked.
Yes, I agree with you, but there were some stinkers. Yeah.
The whole fentanyl thing was hilarious.
Yes.
So I love that.
Yes.
So, I think we're going to have fun with this. I'm glad you proposed this.
Yeah. And to our millions of fans watching at home, I would say if you're someone who kept up with the show and then was disappointed by the ending, give it another shot and just divorce yourself from all pretext and fan theorizing. And just go along for the ride as much as you can and see what happens to your opinion.
Here's what I'll say to that point. If you have beef with the way the show ended, you are absolutely, perfectly fine to watch until the last 5 minutes. Then you hit pause.
Yeah.
Then you go to YouTube.
And then you watch that.
And then you type in How I Met Your Mother alternate ending.
And there it is.
And that is the ending that you want. The rest of the show changes nothing.
Yep.
I feel like there should be a cut of the final episode with the alternate ending.
Here's my hot take. I used to be team alternate ending. I am team original ending.
Yes!
I am team original ending.
I'm glad you've finally seen the light.
Yes.
So we will end episode 0 here.
Episode 0. It's a How I Met Your Mother summer.
How I Met Your Mother summer.
Yes.
I love it. The summer. First we had Slut Summer. Now we have How I Met Your Mother.
Good wholesome.
Good wholesome. We change things around. All right. So we will be back. Very soon.
Yeah.
With episode 1.
Yes. And stay tuned for another special treat. That is not in our summer series.
It is not in the summer series, but this is more in line with what we normally do with the show.
Correct.
So that will go up before this, I feel.
Sounds good.
I feel like I'll probably put both of these episodes up on Friday.
All right.
And then that'll take us to next week.
So I'm Thano.
I'm Javier. You can follow us at the Cine-Scoots, and we'll be back.
We'll be back.
Bye-bye.
Bye.